Hello. I haven't made a video in a little while, and I had said previously that I would make a video on some of the lighters that I've got, so yeah, why not do that? So this is some of the lighters I have. I do like to collect lighters, as well as collecting knives, although I do prefer to collect knives over lighters, but I find that there are some fun and interesting uh, lighter designs out there, and to me, a lighter is just another one of those useful things, much like a pocket knife. And to me, carrying a knife and carrying a lighter kind of goes hand in hand. But that's just me. That's just my opinion. So here's a short selection of what I have. This pretty much represents what I have. I mean, I mostly have Zippos. Most of my Zippos are in the cabinet, but I have three as an example here. We all know what a Zippo is. Everyone knows what a Zippo is. They're great lighters. They're fun. They're very collectible. But of course, I do have some other lighters. So just start off with a Zippos. Just got this one recently. This one is a very simple plain Zippo. The funny thing about this one is I bought this Zippo off Amazon to get free postage on another item. So I've got another Zippo kind of like this. I'm just going to use this one as a beater Zippo because, you know, having a bunch of different Zippos and being a collector of Zippos, I feel that I don't want to use them because I don't like scratching them up. So I'm actually gonna use this one. I'm gonna, you know, whenever I carry knives and lighters, which is every day actually, I like to keep them in separate pockets so my keys don't scratch them up. This one's going to go in straight with my keys, so that's why I say a beater Zippo. Here's another very plain Zippo. This has got a matte red finish. I quite like the feeling of this Zippo. It does feel quite nice to hold. This is one that I used to never really use, but I've started carrying it recently. Although I did buy spare inserts so I can keep the insert that came with this clean, because obviously when you use a Zippo, the chimney starts to get dirty and black and it doesn't look as nice, so that's why I bought some spare inserts. This is one that I haven't used. This has been in my cabinet since I got it. I think this is a pretty interesting design. Probably one of the more expensive Zippos that I've bought. This one was about 30 quid, which isn't too expensive. I mean, some Zippos are right up there at about 200, 250 pounds. But those are the really, the really collectible ones. I think those are the silver ones that are actually made of silver. And I'll show you what I mean by a clean chimney. So you see how nice and shiny that is compared to this, or even this. So hopefully you can see what I mean there. I'd imagine you can see there is quite a bit of difference. Like I said, I do have several other Zippos, but I didn't really see much point in getting them all out just for this one video. Now, somewhat similar to a Zippo, I've got this clipper lighter. These are about £7 off Amazon. Now usually when you say a clipper lighter you think of one of these. Yeah, it's the same people, except this one's a petrol lighter, or a lighter fluid, so it uses the same kind of fuel as a Zippo. You just take off this cap, unscrew it, and pour your fuel in there. And it works more or less like a Zippo. Well, this is a bit more of a pain to screw back on. So it also has a flip top lid, although it does have less of a flame than the Zippo. I have heard that some people actually prefer these over the Zippo. I think these actually hold fuel about a few days more than the Zippo. If you're not aware, Zippos and pretty much every petrol lighter, they lose fuel if you don't use them. You know, I could fill up a Zippo today, completely fill it up, and not use it and come back to it 2 weeks later and it will be empty because the fuel evaporates. And that's the same on pretty much any petrol lighter. This is another one. This is a trench lighter. It's not a real one. It's a modern one made in China, but it's meant to look like a British First World War trench lighter, which I believe was pretty much made by the soldiers in the trenches out of bullet casings. So this is meant to be a reproduction of that. How this works is you hold onto this piece here and you slide this up, which reveals the wick, and then you could light it. Now, one interesting thing about a lighter like this is it could possibly lend itself a bit better to survival. So if you run out of fuel, which once again, you know, the fuel evaporates in these petrol lighters, even if there is no fuel, on this one you can still spark it. Or even if you've got fuel in it, if you've got fuel in this lighter but you don't want to use the fuel, say you know how you get those ferrocerium rods where you strike a piece of steel on it, or a knife or something, and it tosses a spark. Well, you can effectively do that with this lighter. It's a nice representation of a piece of history, I think, and you could use it as a ferro rod if you want, of course, as well as it being a fully functioning lighter. I do have a couple clippers because they're cheap, and well, why not? Being Scottish, of course, I've got a Scottish one, Scottish flag Zippo. And a couple other lighters I've got this electric V-Way. These are kind of unusual. These are actually USB rechargeable, so you don't actually need to buy any fuel. So you don't need butane or you don't need petroleum spirit. You just connect it to your phone charger. And it is also a flip top. It kind of looks a bit like a taser. Now, you're not going to tase anyone with this for a start. The lid doesn't actually move any further than that, so even if you wanted to tase someone, you couldn't. And assuming that you got your finger in there, well, it's just going to give you a little zap. It does make you jump, because I've done it to myself by accident a few times, but it really does not hurt, and it's nowhere near the same as a taser. Even though it looks like a taser, I mean, it is kind of a cool look. Now, you could light almost anything with this, the same as any other lighter, so long as you can get whatever it is you're lighting in there. So if you were to light it and put a piece of paper in there, it'll still catch fire just as easily as a normal flame would. And hopefully you can see that it's just an electrical cross. That's all it is. Although I found that the battery doesn't last very long on these. And the last one I have here is a Turboflame jet lighter. Now, I had one of these a few years ago, but I used it so much that the ignition still working. But I got a new one yesterday, and I think these are pretty great lighters to have. These have 2 jets, and it is, of course, a jet lighter which uses butane, so just your regular lighter fuel. And these burn very hot. These burn at over 1,300 degrees, which is pretty hot for such a small lighter, I think. But these are good for quickly lighting something. You can hold it at any angle. The flame will still be straight, unlike a clipper, which if you do that you're likely to burn yourself, or a Zippo. On these 2 lighters, the flame still wants to go upwards, but on this lighter, you can hold it at any angle and the flame will still stay straight. So that's pretty much it. Just a quick and simple video. Because, well, like I said, I collect lighters as well as knives, so I thought, hey, why not make a video on the matter? So thank you for watching.